ask those people that took out the permits, what did you think? Because we can sit up here and we all slapping ourselves on the back saying we're doing a good job, but those are the people that apply, and specifically it had to do with time delays and paperwork being funneled in and what was needed as far as paperwork was or whatever. So I'd like to, obviously it's not on the agenda, so I would like to see what time is allocated on a scheduled basis for those, for that kind of service.
So that would actually be the zoning service to residents?
Well, it was permits, so they,
Yeah.
these people took out permits.
Yep.
And they seemed to, they relayed to me in no uncertain terms that they thought that that the information wasn't forwarded to them on a timely basis and that, the service could be better. That's all.
Okay. I've got that too, Brandon.
Did you, I remembered, Brandon, I spoke with you this morning or whatever about the, and we're probably not on live, so I don't think it's gonna matter, and tomorrow is the deadline to file the H-122s, which is the homestead, tax filings that all residents have to file. If you don't do that, you'll have a late penalty, and even I didn't know it from a year ago because the board actually waived the 8% penalty. And the few people that I spoke to about that is there's a very reasonable chance that we won't be doing that again. So, but we're not live.
And if you can't file it, you can file for an extension on it too.
Not the H-122.
That's right, because you still get the penalty on it.
Right, so, but I found out today from the office upstairs, from Suzanne, that in any event, you should file this because it will meet the deadline, and then if it needs to be corrected, you met the deadline. It's a big deal. So probably we should have said that at the last meeting because tomorrow is the deadline.
Right.
But anyway.
So,
Somebody better talk to find out what this echo, right? No
yep.
echo.
Okay, we're all set.
Okay.
No, that's much better, much better, thank you.
So we did create a news article on the front page of our website, and there's a quick link to the HS 122 form. So if you just go on the front page of the website, and you click on the news article, you can click on a link to the HS 122 form. Like Dave was saying, it is due tomorrow, and I think he wanted me to talk about the penalties. There could be a penalty imposed of between 3% and 8%, depending on whether it's a homestead or non-homestead filing.
And that can be significant because if your tax bill is $4,000 or $5,000, and that's not uncommon on a homestead, that you're talking about up to $400 penalty.
Correct.
And that is not, which is what even after all these years I've been here, that is not to be confused with the 8% penalty at the end of a tax year if you haven't paid your taxes.
Yes.
That's correct.
And, this form can be submitted online or you can mail it in. I think it's common for folks to complete the form when you do your taxes for your Vermont taxes. But if you do decide to mail it in, just make sure that you have it postmarked.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it doesn't have to be received tomorrow, it has to be postmarked tomorrow.
Right, and it doesn't it could be needed an amendment. That's kind of
Right,
important,
like you said, even if it's wrong, get it done.
even if it's wrong.
Yeah, because you can always fix it.
Yep.
Any other comments from the board? I've got one. Our town manager spent a few days last week, he told us about this at the last meeting, at the Vermont Town and City Management Association. This is actually an association, I think, that involves town managers from all over the country, basically, right?
Yep.
The Vermont Town and City Managers Association is a membership organization that was created in 1977 to increase the knowledge and ability of local government managers and promote increased professional management of Vermont municipalities. There are 5 directors nominated by other towns and voted on by the membership. Tom Marsh from Windsor.
Yep.
Used to be the representative, I guess, around here, and he wanted to get off of that board, and he nominated Brandon, and it was voted on unanimously. Brandon is now a director on that board. So thank you and congratulations. I know you just needed more to do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's actually nice to have the town manager or anybody, it doesn't have, working with other towns. There's a lot of knowledge gained on how to do things, how things are done around us, and Brendan's involved with that quite a bit, because, I mean, you go, what is it, once a month?
Yeah, we have,
The town managers meeting?
yeah, we have a monthly town manager meeting, and we generally meet in either Windsor or Brattleboro. And it's all the town managers in our area, and we kind of get together and talk about some of the issues that we're facing in each of our towns. And what we find is that we're all dealing with similar issues. Even when, you know, we had town and city managers at this conference from all over the United States, but the issues were the same. They had the basic principles. So it was interesting to go to that conference, and you know, what happens is you have a room full of town managers, and you sit at circular tables, and then they have a discussion, and then each table talks about a topic, and then you collaborate amongst yourselves, and then each table presents that topic, and you learn a lot through that process.
Well, good. Thank you for doing that, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon on this from anybody? Citizens, topics not on the agenda. Anybody? I'm not seeing anything in the room. Anybody out there in TV land? Okay. Review minutes from the previous meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of 04/3/23?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made. Kelly beat you to it, Paul, but thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Everything's good? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor of approving the minutes 04/03/2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Town manager update. Brandon?
All right, so the Martin Memorial Hall roofing project has been completed. The project went really fast, and the roof looks a lot better, and we're very happy that the roof was in place. It was a little noisy during the week, but the reason I think everyone was able to get through it. The next project, he's going moving on to the town garage, and then the West Weathersfield fire station. We did have our kickoff meeting today to update our local hazard mitigation plan. We also created a timeline. There'll be 4 public meetings that we need to have, and those will be held on April 25th at 6:30 p.m. at the 1879 Schoolhouse. On June 22nd at 6:30 at the 1879 Schoolhouse. On July 13th at 6:30, and I'll be posting this on the website as well for anybody that wants to attend those. And then the final one will be presenting here to the select board with all of the input that we gather through those prior 3 public meetings. The 1879 Schoolhouse Committee is working on its final assignments during the next two meetings. And their final assignments are to develop the proposed uses and develop a proposed maintenance plan and so forth. And lastly tonight, we did submit our ARPA report. So we have to submit those ARPA reports regularly. And that report goes to Treasury. So a team has been assembled to meet at the 1879 Schoolhouse. Or basically, I sent out an email to a group of folks in town, people that are on committees and on departments and the police department, fire departments, and so forth. And we're all going to kind of meet at the 1879 Schoolhouse. Anybody's welcome to attend to discuss how people propose to use the remaining ARPA funds. And I believe that's going to be on May 4th at 6:30 p.m. That's Thursday.
Any questions? Any questions?
Did you say that you're just gonna gather information, then forward it to us, so it's for opportunity for people to speak about ARPA funds?
Yeah, so it's opportunity for us all to come together, and we're gonna sit in the room and basically, the library will say, hey, I have this project, and then the next person will say, hey, I have this project that could be potentially, a potential ARPA project. And then I'm gonna combine all of that information and give it to the select board.
But we've been doing that at almost every meeting. There's been a lot of talk about different things and about, you passed on to us that there are some towns that spent all their money right away
Yes,
on different projects, but there was a couple of towns that you mentioned that spent it all on one project.
yes,
And I think when you and I spoke, we agreed that even though we've been taking a little criticism about not doing enough on different things, that it's been pretty good to slow walk
it has.
our thought process on some things. So, and not to say that we haven't spent money, because we have spent half of it, right?
Yeah, we
About.
spent a little bit more than half.
Right. But when you list the ones that we've spent on now, so far, I'm not thinking that we've shut anybody out the door of opportunity for them to talk or come in to see us.
Correct, and,
We've
but
been like
we
kind of
do,
being wide open.
and we have ARPA discussion on the agenda, item 9 tonight.
Oh,
So
okay, all right.
we're gonna continue that discussion here still.
And the purpose of the meeting at the schoolhouse is really just to kind of see if we can get any more proposals so that we have all of the information when the board starts to make decisions on the remaining funds.
Won't you know though, like when is the timetable gathered on the water and septic studies? Is that,
That's going to take about 18 months.
okay, so that's a bit of a wild card with using up ARPA funds, because if anybody's thinking about saying that those may or may not be pursued, that's gonna take money.
It is, and that will take, state and federal grants.
Yeah, but they always come up with a 5 or 10% match.
Yes,
You
they
don't get in for free.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Police cruiser upfitting. You gave me and Brandon the responsibility of meeting with the chief and working this out. Brandon, you wanna update him on what
Yeah.
came through?
So we did receive 3 estimates for the police cruiser upfitting. Adamson Industries Corporation estimated $13,293. Twin Line was at $13,076, and Yipes Auto and Graphics estimated $11,632. The graphic proof of that's attached in the packet. So we're recommending Yipes Auto and Graphics. I did do a little bit of research on them. I found that the town of Windsor also uses them, and the information that we obtained is that they do a good job. So
What's the name of that company?
Yipes Auto and Graphics.
YIPES?
Yes.
What's the total?
$11,632.23.
11,632 and 33?
23.
23. And that's for the graphics package, and that's everything it's not just the graphics package, it's the graphics and the upfitting of the cruiser,
Yes.
all the other work that needs to be done. Somebody,
Transferring the stuff that we can transfer from the other cruiser into this cruiser.
correct, yeah, there's some stuff that's getting moved, mostly mounting brackets and that kind of stuff that's getting moved.
Yeah.
The computer itself, we're not replacing that, that'd be a lot of money.
Radios.
Yep,
I'll make a motion that we, award the bid purchase to, Yipes Auto and Graphics for a total cost not to exceed $11,632.23, is from the town's ARPA fund, and to waive the purchasing policy or requirements to complete a formal bid process.
do I hear a second?
Yes,
Motion's been made and seconded, any further discussion?
yes.
Go.
I'm not sure that although I would support the waiver of the policy also says that to seek 3 bids, which was done here. So, that's okay. My question is this truly,
Actually, Dave, before you move on to that, because I don't want to lose track of this train of thought, I want to have a discussion here at the board on like the purchase of cruisers, police cruisers and things, about that policy. Let's not forget that. Brendan, I talked to you about that.
Do I need to remove that from the?
I don't think so. I think it's a good idea to do it, but we did seek 3 bids. I think there's something in the policy that says that that's what you're supposed to do. You follow
Right,
a line.
that's correct.
So it's not just you go seek it from one person. That's not the case.
Right.
But that's a whole separate discussion.
That's right. I just wanted to let you know. So now go ahead with what you wanted to.
See the visual, did everybody see the visual here of the police car, the
Yes.
graphics? So is this firmly in place, or is this kind of a loose design?
It's not in place until the motion is
No,
completed.
I mean the car, when you look at the car and you see the decals on here, is that,
Are they white, or are they
So those
just
are-
ghost like the other ones?
So those are gray, consistent with the other cruisers.
I'd like to see, when John came in, I don't
Yeah,
think
I'd
he's
like to
here.
see it white.
I'd like to see it white as well,
Yeah.
but my point is a little bit different. See where it says like Weathersfield Police? Could you make it say Weathersfield, Vermont Police?
Again,
Okay, because I really think that that's kind of important, because we're so close to the border here and we travel.
Well, and this,
We're
yeah,
not
and
hooked to- we go to Claremont, we got other, whatever the business is where it is. I think it'd be important to identify that.
how,
Just the VT.
the chief was kind of thinking that, the colors that go on the cars, if we get into that, we might be overstepping our bounds. That was his position on that. And I asked Brendan, I said, well, what do you think if we just went a little bit of a lighter gray? Maybe not white, but a lighter color gray, a little bit more visible color gray at least. I mean, what do you guys think?
So
When-
I'm assuming that this is so that it is, so they actually are a little less visible. I'm assuming that's why they're doing it, so it's more, I'm guessing that. is that
but I
they're
think
doing
that's-
it- I understand that the 2 things, so you see Windsor and you can tell that's a police car or whatever, but I was assuming that some of this was done because, I noticed that when I see them, they're usually parked somewhere so they are not very visible. So I was assuming that that's probably why they're doing this, is so that.
it's also the colors that have been used for quite some time.
Yeah, I did
The
understand that.
colors are similar to the colors in Claremont.
Claremont, I mean, I've been there the last couple of days, and their cars are all white with black letters. They may have a particular couple of cruisers that are, but the majority of the run cruisers are very much black and whites. I mean, I get what you mean, but you don't want to interfere a little bit. But I think times have changed a little bit. I listen to the scanner a little bit more than I used to. There's a lot of activity here at Exit 8, a really lot. And the older I get, the more important I think it is for permanent identification. And it's not a matter of, you always hear the story of, I didn't know you were a policeman, so I didn't pull over. I didn't know, you know what I mean? I understand you want to be a little bit sneaky, but for me, it's more about identifying yourself as who you are, who you say you are, and what you are.
I go back a little bit in time, and if I remember, and I don't know, maybe this law has changed too, but I think as far as I knew, was illegal for like a police car to pull over and kind of hide, like with no lights on and behind stuff. You're not supposed to do that.
I don't know, but
I don't even know if it's real.
I was just gonna say, I just assumed that somehow the police know what they're asking for and they do, I don't know.
When you put the lights on, you know it's a cop.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what if the young girl doesn't see that it's really a police car?
Well, we
Well,
had that in the
but all
eighties
the-
and we drove down the road and we had to go into a lighted area and they pulled up and they had to identify themselves, I
And
remember
all of
that.
these light bars are hidden in the vehicle.
Right.
So where, we gotta go back, maybe it's before you, you know, you were only like this big. There used to be big bubbles on top of that, you know, the bars.
95.
The light bars coming out of Wheeling. Now, they look just like they're very much ingrained in the unit.
So what do you want to do with this? You guys,
I'm okay with being a little lighter and not white, but I want it identified better than what they are now.
Okay. So like 2 shades lighter.
I don't know, I'm only one.
Mike.
Can colorblind people see the gray on the black? I'm just curious. Because to me, if we're wanting to identify them as a police officer, some people from a colorblind perspective may not be able to even recognize the letters against the black.
hadn't thought of that. Paul, did you want to add something?
No, I'm sorry. I agree with Dave for the most part about the Vermont. It's fine, but I don't know. I'm going to go on what the chief feels. You know, I get the other point that Dave's trying to make. I think is the fact of having a police presence to be able to show that. So, you know, I don't know if is there a plan to have every single vehicle like this, or have like a vehicle that stands out and then the other vehicle not? You know, so that you can do some covert work with one, and then the other you can use as a presence vehicle of sorts. I don't know. The problem is to that point, I don't want to nitpick what the chief wants as much either. I mean, you know what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter. You'll see the lights and you'll pull over. I'm not going to pull over just because I see a vehicle unless the lights are on.
Yeah, I was gonna somewhat agree with that same idea, is that I think that I wanna look at this from what the cost is and leave the police business to the police, and if we need to have him come in and discuss why he's doing it this way, or at some point, maybe he could, so if we're gonna do a future car, that we wanna do something different, but at least there's gotta be a reason for why he chose to do it this way. I don't know, but,
Call the vote.
I mean,
yeah, that's, I agree with Dave. I'll vote.
All right, so we're just going to leave it the way it is for now. I suppose you could maybe ask Bill if he'd go a shader, and if he doesn't want to, it's up to him.
Yeah,
The board isn't really making a decision or holding anything over his head.
Well, we are, but we don't want to make a demand.
Yeah, well, yes.
We want it both ways.
So, all right, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to award the RFP to Yipes for the upfitting of the cruiser for $11,632.23 signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Parks and Recreation, you're up.
Good evening. I know you guys are used to me being here as a highway superintendent. Tonight I'm here as Parks and Rec committee member. Probably a year and a half ago or so was the meeting at the Scotty Fire Station I attended, and the students from the school came in and did a demonstration about the possible project for ARPA funding, and I thought it was kind of cool. At the end of it, all the board members asked any committees or groups in town if they had an interest in doing a presentation to request ARPA funding for a project, to please work on one and then contact Brandon for a date with the board. So I guess this is our date with the board. We've been working with, there's only 5 of us on the Parks and Rec Commission right now. The project description, everybody here knows what Washington Field is, or where it is, the old school. In our town plan, it states that that's one place, it's actually named, one of the only places in town that are named to develop and improve for town use. Our job is to give recommendations to the town select board on how we feel properties would be fixed up to best serve our community. We picked this park basically because it's in the town plan. It meets all the criteria for things that ARPA wants towns to invest in, and it gets used quite a bit. Either from the school, playing soccer, a lot of people can go out there on a daily basis, there's quite a few folks there. The project is 3 phases, and I'm kind of going off the slides a little bit here. I know you all get advice, and it's some town money, like the basketball courts, pavilions, that type of thing. What we're trying to do is to develop a master plan with input from citizens of the town of Weathersfield on what they want. The best way to do that, to get a comprehensive plan, we believe, there's firms out there that come in, they run the meetings, they get input from all the citizens, they tell you the setbacks, they tell you all the zoning issues that you might have, wetland issues you might have, things, how much space you actually have that's usable, and what you can and can't do realistically. Through the process of the 3 meetings with the town being invited in and people giving input, you're gonna get all kinds of brainstorming. Somebody's gonna want a bike park, a dog park, skating, roller skating area. There's all kinds of things people want. And through the process, you work on what the town can afford and what best serves multi-generational people in town. So, like, for instance, a skateboard park. That basically targets one group. And it really limits the use of that area just for skateboarders. A baseball field. It limits the use to a diamond. You can use the field for some things. We have a pitching mound, your backstop, maybe dugouts, whatever, fences. It kind of limits the use. But a soccer field, the initial cost might be similar to a baseball diamond, but it's a lot less maintenance. And it's an open area that everybody can use instead of having a whole bunch of little things that congest it. The overall goal is to get as much input from the citizens as we can to develop a master plan that works. Now, if this happens, and the master plan comes in, it's a vision plan for everybody in town to use. That is not the design. The next phase is an actual design or an engineered sketch, blueprints of what you want to build, where you can build it, all the codes. Everything is designed on a blueprint. After that, the 3rd phase is to start construction. Now, the price you got is $917,000, which makes you all want to choke, including me. That's if we were to get the 2nd phase done, put it out to bid, hire a construction company to come in and do everything. That is not the vision of the board, and you guys can speak up if I'm speaking out of line. The thought process is, once we have the plan in place and everything's designed, we know where things are going, so when the folks from the astrology club come over and want to donate a telescope, which they do, we know where it goes, and we know where it fits in the park. If we can find a grant to build an ADA compliant playground area, we know what we want to build, where it fits in, we can get a grant and have that built. If there's a company that wants to donate labor and help us come in and build a pavilion, we know the style, we know where it's going to go, and where to place it. Everything's designed, everything's concrete. It's not, let's build a pavilion and go put it someplace and hope it's compliant. Everything's focused on the master plan that's derived from the town residents. I know I didn't follow the slides at all. We did do some work down there. For instance, this is the basketball court. It was a thought of having a court and having a dual purpose for a skating rink. So what happened is they built a basketball court and they crowned it from the center out to drain the water. And then, I don't know the exact process, but at some point they decided they put a berm around it to catch the water and make an ice skating rink. So now, it's not a great basketball court because you go after a ball or do a layup, you're going to roll your ankle on those curves, and it doesn't hold the water because the road is all crowned away. So it's something that if we had to take the time, had a design, knowing we wanted to build and had it right, it would have lasted a long time and been a great investment. We have a beautiful playground down there that we hope to recycle and reuse. One issue is the parking lot. It's basically just the footprint of the old school, and it's dirt. A lot of the neighbors complain about the dust in the summer. If parking is an issue, then we can focus on designing a really good parking lot. It might be smaller, it might be a little bit bigger, but it's going to be definitely designed to hold more cars. The way it is now with the horseshoe driveway, and it's just the footprint of the school. It wasn't really thought to be a parking lot, thoroughly designed. The idea is, some ideas we've had, is pickleball, a walking path, a place to slide, and maybe some terraces where the ledges are with a little bandstand at the bottom so you can play music and listen to music. Also be handicap accessible so people can get into each terrace. There's a lot of wonderful ideas, but we don't know what we can afford and what we can do unless we have a study done. long-term maintenance, replacement cost, all those are factored in with the design phase. Brian Rosenberg lives in town. He has worked developing parks, and he offered to come in and help us with a draft of a proposal that could be available to be sent out for a firm to bid on. If Brian would like to come up and speak for a few minutes, he can talk about a lot of the technical stuff if you're interested. I'd appreciate this. First, Brian, thanks for letting me out.
Sure. I mean, so when I met with Ray over a year ago, he talked to me about the idea of the park, and I expressed, in my experience after doing master planning and regional planning and these types of projects, that you really need a master plan. You got to start with something. So how do you do that? So you gather all the information as Ray described, but once you have that master plan, then we have a sense of where we're headed with the ship, and we can get some preliminary estimates. The numbers we came up with was from this committee here. We drew around some ideas and came up with a laundry list of things that were possible, and through using the VTran cost estimation, my experience and Ray's experience, we came up with an approximate what is this park may cost that would include all these ideas. And then the other thing that we wanted to do was to come here tonight and say, well, what do we think this conceptual master plan is going to cost? And based on our ideas of the park and my experience in doing these projects and knowing that it's going to take a certain amount of effort and time, we came up with that budget of approximately $35,000 as what a conceptual master plan should cost. And then after that, if that were to go ahead, then we have to get into the working drawings, specifications and the details for the parks. And again, based on what we think the park will cost and what we know about the project, we think that's around a $90,000 number for those second phase drawings. It's a little hard to anticipate all that, but based on what we know, my experience, what Ray knows, and his experience plus what the committee has said, we think we're in the ballpark of where this thing should go. And the beauty of the master plan is once we have it together and it goes out and we get some preliminary numbers, we can also eliminate things in trim a budget and not just have this thing go on and on forever. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the planning process. Ray would, I'm sure, be able to talk more about some of the costs or any questions that the board may have.
One other statement is, if we can get both phases completed, we can start applying for grants. We'd have drawings, we'd have engineered sketches, everything would be shovel ready. Right now, it's really difficult to get design money. So if we can get past the first two hurdles on this, it would set us on our way to the long-term plan of actually starting to build.
And you made a very good point. So my experience when doing these public projects, nobody wants to donate money for a design. They want to donate money for a playground or an amphitheater or something that can have a gaming opportunity where the family of so-and-so gave for this. Design dollars are really hard to raise, in my experience. So that's why we're here tonight to ask for some proper funding here to help get this thing over to at least the first stage. We'd love to have both, but that's why we're here tonight to discuss with you.
I personally can't see going to the taxpayers and asking for $135,000 roughly in new tax revenue. So this is a golden opportunity to take some ARPA money and invest it in the future of the park and get over the first two hurdles. The reason why people haven't come to the board in the past to do work at the park is it's expensive, and we know that we can't raise tax revenue. We're barely getting by on some of the regular budgets. This is a golden opportunity, once in a lifetime, kind of like the big deal, and we're probably never going to see something like this again. I know I say it's not our tax dollars, technically it is, but it's through the federal government. It's a way that we can really afford this shot in the arm and go for it. And there's some people here from the town that have come just to show support. You guys have anything or not, but thank you. Questions?
My first question is relative to the $135,000 number. This is conceptual, and then you kind of move forward with hiring. Phase one, the $35,000 up front, that's the one with the meetings and stuff where people come in would it be possible that these numbers would go lower if we did some of that work ourselves prior to them starting that $35,000 thing? In other words, like you mentioned, a skateboard park, or, a few of the things that you mentioned. If we were able to sit back and say, well, look, this works and this works, this isn't gonna work. So, we can take those things out. Does that make their job easier? Will it save any money? That, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Just looking to understand.
Maybe a little bit, Mike.
Nothing significant?
Because, so there's a certain amount of inertia when we would do what we call these things called design charrettes.
Mhm.
Invite everybody, certainly the board needs to be involved in gathering information and doing the legwork that you talk about, I think is very important. And I factored in some of that when we thought about how do we keep the fees as low as possible. We talked about that step to help
Okay.
the consultant do less.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna have to get a certain level of momentum up to hold this thing together, to gather all this. It takes a lot of work to get the information. Once you have the information, and, during that information gathering process, they're gonna come up with concepts and ideas. Like you say, hey, I'd love to have, I don't know, an amphitheater. Well, then they would quickly sketch and say, okay, they would have the rough layout of the park or the land there and say, well, it could go here. And then we could repurpose that playground equipment here. And the basketball court could be here. And then in the center, we could have a multi-purpose court. And so through these couple of 2 or 3 meetings that we're proposing that we have the consultants sort of engaging the group, edging them on, and coming up with even better ideas. So, and the result of all that is going to be that conceptual master plan that should be fairly accurate for moving forward in the future.
And not only that, the biggest thing with having a firm come in is the survey, the zoning, the wetland delineation. They're gonna tell you exactly what you have for available space to follow all regulations and codes. And they're also supposed to, it's in the RFP, provide us with initial preliminary cost to build it, to maintain it, and replace it. So we can start kicking stuff off as we go. And then when that design is complete, then that's ready to go to an actual engineer that does all the code, the electricity, everything is done the way it's supposed to be done at that point.
One of the things I worry about in my experience of doing this thing, everybody gets very excited. We have all these ideas. Well, all those ideas have a big cost. And so that's why in the RFP we ask for preliminary cost data through the process so we don't end up with a $2 million project, but we want to spend less than $1 million, or maybe even less. I mean, I don't know, Ray, he and I, we had a discussion about costs, and it's a little hard to project, but we think we're purposely on the high end of things, but I don't know. It's difficult to gauge.
Nicole?
I just wanted to point out that on the Towns and Cities website, other towns are doing similar projects to this throughout Vermont. So in order to get people to move to Weathersfield, this would be a good opportunity to invite them. Because if other towns are gonna have better rec fields, and our environment is one of the places, like one of the reasons people move here, like we should probably have a nice park.
And we're not gonna end up, my goal personally is I don't wanna end up with Top Hall. I mean, it's going to be a multi-purpose, multi-use, multi-generational. If an 85-year-old wants to go there and have a birthday party, they're gonna have access to a building, they're gonna be able to get there safely, they're not gonna have to walk all the way across the field like they do now. There's gonna be maybe a nice walking path. Things like that initially cost money, but long-term maintenance isn't a lot. Yes, there is maintenance, but it's not like a climbing tower where you have to have people there helping people do the climbing. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So the numbers you're seeing are based on the goal. And the 35 and the design are probably pretty close. The design might come down if the design comes in and it's saying a soccer field instead of a baseball field. A walking path that's gravel is also multi-purpose, so you can drive on it to get to your gazebo. Maybe getting solar panels on the gazebos through Vermont Sun, because they do those carports that could actually be a gazebo if you want. These are all ideas and thoughts. Everything would be based on what we think we can get for grants. If you know you can get an ADA grant for access to different things, with paths and whatnot, you focus on designing it in the purpose of getting those grants.
So first we have to have the master plan, because we can't go anywhere, we can't raise $0. I'm sure we could say, folks, hey, we're gonna build a park, would you donate some money? They go, great, what is it gonna look like? What's the outcome gonna be?
Brandon, with all, we've heard John come in here and talk about all the money that the state has, but I'm not aware of how a lot of that's being used. Are there any programs grant programs that would provide funding for this initial stage that would help with this $135,000 cost, this upfront planning stuff. Is there any of that?
So back in my time when I was the city grant writer in Fall River and Pembroke, I have seen success with preliminary plans if it's specific to ADA. Or if there's a significant ADA component. I've also seen a lot of success in grant applications for projects like this. One of the examples was like the Town Landing Beach Park in Pembroke. I think we got a little over $250,000 for it. And then several projects like this one in Fall River scattered throughout the city that were fully funded. So, I mean, recreation's an important component of any community. And especially after COVID, we realized that we need to get out more and be more active. So, I mean, in brief, I think that there could be, I think the master plan, like Mr. Bosenberg and Ray were saying, is important to know because it guides, it's the direction that you need to know where you're going. And then from there, you know, we could potentially try to get funding for, you know, the engineering or the drawings or the schematics. And then from there, apply for grants for funding to do the project. But I mean, it's a beautiful field, and I think we do need to figure out how to best utilize that space. But to do that, we need some kind of a master planning process.
Well, we also have, you know, we're talking about ARPA funds to do this, and ARPA funds are on the discussion of item number 9. I can see there's a lot of work that has gone into this already, and I've been on committees and understand that the time and work that goes into these things. But I, for me right now, the discussion is about ARPA and ARPA funding, and that's going to move into item 9, where we're coming to in a little bit. And as I recall, the last discussion we had about ARPA is that we're in a process of gathering ideas and then prioritizing those ideas as to what best represents the town and the most good for the town. Up to this point, I think we've spent $400,000, and mostly in repairs of buildings and properties. You know, mostly. There's been a few things that are. Wendy, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that growing up in Weathersfield, I've actually really haven't done much at the Hoisington field. And raising my children, I really didn't have anything to do with that side of town. But I also realized how much our town really just felt like a separate village that we lived in over here. And I don't know of any place that's been a common place where our town could ever gather together to actually, I guess I never even looked at it until tonight. You know, that's just been, that was the old school. And it is sad that we really don't have a place that our community, like Windsor or Springfield, people, they have places to gather. And so I don't want to discount this. I think it'd be a great thing for the community, so.
When I did a lot of research and about the grant writing, a lot of the grants, they want shovel-ready projects, especially federal, because your representatives want to say, we built this.
Mm-hmm.
Scoping projects don't usually get funded as heavily, so it is kind of a gamble here. But as far as the park itself, I've spoken to a lot of people during soccer games, or if I'm just going down there, I live near there. I hear a lot of people doing it down there, I go down and start talking to them. One of the biggest things I didn't even realize was such a great deal was if there's a soccer game going on, this is the only place around really that has a playground next to the field. So if there's siblings there, they can go play on the playground, and the parents love that. And they love the open space. They don't want it to be a a lot of people don't want it to be chopped up into a bunch of little specialized parks. They want a huge open space that, if you want to have a farmer's market, if you want to have a festival, if you want to have a fair, you can do that kind of stuff. If somebody wants to do a honey festival and rent space, we can rent it to them for businesses to sell products. The biggest thing was not to destroy it by cluttering it up with a bunch of giant structures that are only for one thing.
I think there are a lot of things to consider here. Absolutely, the use, you know, I live down the road a little bit, but I go by there almost every day. There's always somebody there, it seems. Dave, I can tell you're getting ready.
Well, I respond to a few comments. Nicole, you said that we should build it because people would move into town. Our town manager tried to move into town. There aren't any houses for sale. So I don't think that a park or anything else that we do to this town is going to magically draw people to town, because the people that are here don't want to leave. Okay, it's that easy. Has anybody on the committee looked up the deed?
Yes.
Okay. So you would know then that it was owned by the Barr family. Hoisington really doesn't have anything to do with it, other than it was a farmer that kind of used the field.
Correct. It ended up going to Bars because that's not the family.
The Barr family donated it to the school for recreation purposes.
Correct.
Those are in italics.
When the school left, there was a discussion about leaving it as a town area for recreation.
Well, just discussion may be what you want to call it, but I would urge you to look up the deed, because I haven't yet, but I've been here for 47 years, I know what I'm talking about. And I was on the school board when the merger happened, and I believe that that property's already surveyed. I believe the wetlands are delineated, because we studied that facility, whether we were gonna add on to it as an alternative to consolidation of one building. So I believe that work now, the survey is gonna be what it is. And the footprint of the building isn't exactly where the parking lot is. There was the parking lot in the front, where the buses could fully turn around, 3 buses. And then there was a parking lot in the back where the teachers parked, because my wife taught first grade there. So there's been a lot of history with the area. It was interesting to listen to that comment about building a bunch of different things, but I saw the list of different things, and that's gonna take up quite an area, like basketball or other things, is going to remove grass. And that's the issue that we had under any building alternative at that site, was the 50 and 100-foot setbacks to the wetland. And the beavers are still there. That's also gonna play a part in this. I'm a little bit disappointed that the compliments haven't been there for the people that have done the work to make it what it is today. It is 1,000% better than it was when the school building was there today. And I attended, both of my kids went through the schools. My grandchildren are going through the schools. And there's not gonna be a fix to draw the people from Ascutney to Perkinsville. I don't care what you build over there. Life is what it is today. And we are a little bit, even though we're Weathersfield, something doesn't get built 10 miles away and then draw that way. And if you say like Springfield or Windsor, but it's like North Springfield has its own park. And then, down by the riverside, it has a park. So there are different parks. I'm also concerned that people aren't evaluating what we do have. We have 1,500 acres in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that has Springweather, which is a nature conserve, which is loaded with trails that was given as an example of what you did, because my granddaughter was involved in the presentation they made from the school about what we had. We also have Stoughton Pond Beach area. We have swimming that's in the Army Corps. So it's not like Weathersfield doesn't have anything, and we need to have a park that seems to me, looks like that is focused on sports. And I'm part of that too, because I go watch whoever to play, and that's what you do. So if I saw the list of things, it did gear more towards action, activity, however you wanna say that. A couple of years ago, I mentioned to you, Brandon, when you first got here, and I'm not opposed to having us look at this area, but when I drive by, I see it as being enormously, and I've lived here, better than what it was. I recall asking you about the opportunity when we were talking about the town forest and biking and all that other, to also look at regionalizing things. And West Windsor bought 400 acres on Mount Escutney, and they are developing that greatly as an outdoor activity site. And I don't think that, given what we're gonna be facing down the road with interest rates rising and the dollar amounts of things, including whatever it takes to run the town, that the towns are going to, small towns like us, are gonna be able to buy everything for everybody. So I agree with what you just said, Mike, about when we get talking into ARPA. I think this should be on a list of things that we might take a look at to see. But I think some of the work may be done. Frankly, I would ask that somebody go look up, maybe upstairs in the vault at some moment in time in the next few weeks, to see if there's a deed or if there is a survey, and maybe to go see all the people at the school have turned over. But when we were talking about the building, the school building, we did review that site pretty hard. So I don't know, I guess I've said what I wanted to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hi,
You-
I live.
Your
over
name,
in
your name,
Perkinsville.
your name, please?
Carrie Waters.
Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, I live over in Perkinsville. I've lived there, 15 years, raised my daughter there. That park was a wonderful place to go to when she was little. It's a great place for her to go and play soccer now. It was great to see so many people there at the soccer games this fall. It's a great facility, but it is aging. I came tonight because I heard you guys were talking about this. I wasn't sure where the project was at, if it was gonna move forward. Ray had mentioned that they were trying to do some upgrades, and I thought it was amazing that the town would go and invest in that property. Maybe it won't draw people over from the Escutney side of town, but it's a really wonderful site for our side of town or anybody else in the area. And I think it's kind of crazy that Weathersfield is a town that's so recreation focused, but we don't have a park. I mean, it's a great facility, but so much more could be added to it. And I do go and use the other facilities like Spring Weather. The trails there are excellent. Stoughton Pond is a great place to go and swim, but just a park to go and have a picnic, or to get my elderly mother out to go like walk around a flat area and have a trail, place to keep playing sports, and have a playground right there. It's excellent, and I think it'd be a huge missed opportunity by the town to not continue to invest in that property. So I just wanted to support the project and the folks who have done all this work, and it would be a real shame to see it not move forward at this point.
Ray?
I just want to thank Dave for pointing out about the survey and stuff. If that is the case, and we have a survey that can be used, that would, I'm assuming, reduce the cost of the 35,000 traffic. If we can find it and use it, that would be wonderful. And there has been a lot of work done there, and I do respect all the people that have come there and done the work. What has happened in the past is a thought comes up to build a pavilion or build a court or to build this or build that, and there's no real master plan, so they kind of just get hodgepodge together. If we can have a master plan and a design, we can still utilize all that support and all that hard work from volunteers and donations or whatever we can get, but we'd be focused on building to a design instead of just trying to do what we can to get make things better. That's the goal. And also, this is a starting point. This long. I've been talking to the Army Corps of Engineers, we're having a fair there, they're invited to come to the festival this summer at Weathersfield Field, they're gonna set up a booth. The theme's going to be outdoor rec, so we can talk about the Windsor Outdoors is gonna be invited, the golf course has been invited. Anything to do with outside rec is gonna be at that fair, we hope, and so we can start promoting what's available in our town. This would be a hub. If we could figure out how to get from here down Maple Street, down one of the old roads into the flood control area, perfect. That would be wonderful. But we are working with those other groups to utilize those parks or those facilities and promote them. It's part of the whole greater scope. We picked a starting point, and this is in the master plan of the town plan.
Brandon, you have a list that you've created for the ARPA discussion already?
It's a list that will be rediscussed at our next meeting.
Well, we're gonna be
Yeah,
in a few minutes, because it's on the agenda. Put this in that list.
Okay.
Kelly would like, she'd like to speak.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
Did I hear correctly that the land was deeded to the school?
Yes, and there was a loan that was taken out for demolition, so this is just stuff to look up, because I know that but the school may have transferred it to the town for $1.
But is that
After
something that
the
needs to be
demolition.
checked
Yes,
first
on a legal
Yeah.
sense of ownership.
before we do anything? I just wanna make sure.
I know there was a huge discussion about that when the school moved, and they wanted to make sure the town could still use the field. They said as long as it's still used for recreational purposes.
That's correct.
That they would support it. I
Have
don't
to
know
follow
the final
the deed.
decision, so that's something after review.
There was a loan taken out, I think it was like $42,000 or $45,000
To get rid of the
for,
building.
yes.
Yeah.
My children and everything. So I think that it's wonderful, but I do want you to know that all I've ever thought that was over there was just the old school building. And it is nice that they're gonna do some activities, the fair that they're gonna do, I think that's great, because I genuinely do think this town, it would be nice that that something would draw people together as a town. The fishing derby was great last year. You know, all the other things we just did individually as a family. We went to Stoughton Pond, all that type of thing, but the fact that we don't have a place that, is a place that we use as a community, I don't wanna discount what it's been used in the past. But I'm just saying, as far as I was concerned, it was just the old school building, and that was a field that if you wanted to, you could take your kids and they could practice soccer there. So,
2 years
But
ago.
it's changed a lot since the building has come down.
yes.
2 years
Yeah.
ago, the pavilion had the music on the what was it, Friday nights? That went over pretty well too.
It did. It did bring up some issues with like mosquitoes, which obviously can be addressed certain ways. But electricity is a huge thing. Parking is a huge thing. There's huge grants for building bat houses, and you can make a little education center about bats, and that's something you could simply get a grant. You can easily get a grant for, and that would greatly help.
Yeah, but they don't eat enough of those mosquitoes.
As long as the beavers don't take that house down, we're good.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead, Paul.
So this year, I don't know if it was last year or not, but at least I know this year, Weathersfield Middle School actually has an 8th grade baseball team. And the field at the high school, at the middle school is, not legal regulation size.
It is now.
What's that?
It is now. They cha-
Okay, so they fixed it. so
They
that
changed
got
it last
rid of
week.
Yeah, I'm gonna say just this past
Yeah.
week.
Okay, no, that's great, because I wasn't sure if Hoisington Field could have been used for something of that nature, or that's, because it was larger, but that's good if they modified it up there now, so that's good. I retract my question.
Go ahead,
There
Rick.
was a discussion with the school about that before they did the baseball field, because they were asking if they could still use Hoisington Field for soccer, and obviously they can, so they made a decision to invest in a baseball field. And they agreed, they didn't really want to have a baseball field, that one purpose in the middle of a nice park like that, so there was a discussion. before they went to build the ball field.
Dave, you got anything else? Kelly? You good? Brandon, anything you wanna add?
I just appreciate all the time it took to put all this together.
I really do. Like I said earlier, I've been on lots of committees, and it is a lot of work, and sometimes it comes in here and then it just evaporates. But we've got some work ahead of us, because we do have to, we have some other projects that we have to look at with the ARPA funding. But we will certainly get that on the list, and
We really appreciate your time. And if the
appreciate yours as well.
Stand up for a quick second. We'll let them go.
Thank you.
Thank you all again. Thank you all for coming. Those of you who aren't on there that came in to support it as well. Select Board Town Manager goals.
You just skipped 2 agenda items.
I did, Q3 finance plan, sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you, Brandon.
And then we have an ARPA discussion as well.
Yep.
All right, so prior to including our Norwich bills that extend from April 22 to June 30th, 23, the general fund is projected to end the year at $12,101. So just keep in mind that once Norwich bills are applied, this number is probably going to change in the negative. And we're doing our best to make sure that it doesn't, and adjusting accordingly. This does include balancing the $40,000 shortfall in revenue and the over expenditures from the Ascutney Fire Department. You'll see on page 1 there's the general fund. You can see all of the revenues and where we're at per quarter. So as you can see, in Q1 we received $357,000. In Q2 it's $388,000. Q3 $304,000, and we're projecting $372,000 for Q4. But that still puts us in a negative position as far as our revenues go for year to date on June 30th. On the expense side, you can see that it's relatively consistent over the quarters, like in Q1, Q2, Q3. It varies between right around the $350,000 mark, and we're projecting about $50,000 less in Q4, which is consistent with the spending freezes and budgetary freezes that we moved forward with, so that we can try to land on 0. And the highway fund, prior to including Norwich bills again, because the Norwich bills are in the general fund, they're in the highway fund, and they're in the solid waste fund. The highway fund is projected to end the year at $20,722, and this includes a recently improved paving project on Quarry Road. And then Ray is really good at watching the diesel prices, and it dropped to $3.07 per gallon. So we did decide to invest in filling in diesel fuel when it hit that price. What are diesel prices today?
Unfortunately, they're 303.
Okay, so
It did jump up to like 350 after I bought it, and now it's back down to 303.
so it goes up, it fluctuates, so you kind of have to catch it.
$4, so solid, well over $4 all the year.
Yep. But then it spiked up to 350 after you bought it for 307. Yep.
We were down to fumes, we were trying to.
So we did fill those up, and if you go through the revenues, it looks like we're gonna we're projected to end the year at $6,000 more in revenue, so it's different than the general fund in that sense. And then on the expense side, you can see the budget to actual in the right-hand column. That shows kind of where we budgeted and where we project to land at year end, where the line item where we spent less and where we spent more. In the solid waste fund, again, prior to including Norwich bills, the solid waste fund is projected to end the year at a negative $22,757. When I was talking with our area towns, this is a very similar problem. Like, this is not new. In fact, I don't think there was one town that I spoke to that didn't end the year in a deficit, and within the past 5 years. So it's not like Weathersfield is different than everybody else. This is a similar problem that everyone's facing.
Are you only talking about trash here?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yeah, we're on the solid waste fund now.
Okay, good.
And this includes a net fixed revenue expense of $1,421. So what that shows is that, like, our fixed expenses are, you know, landing really close to zero, and that's good. The issue is, again, on our variable revenue expense side, which is a negative $21,337. But we just kind of tried to fix that with the increase in the punch ticket. That's going to take several months before we're actually going to be able to see the effect of that, maybe 3 to 6 months. So we'll just continue doing these finance reports, continue evaluating it, and then as we try to break even, if we're too much, then we'll want to go back down. But if we're too little, then we'll want to figure out a different solution. So that's the Q3 finance report. And this report, there'll be another report next month that will include April, and we'll go all the way until year end.
What is the due date for the grand list?
I don't know that date off the top of my head.
May 1st.
Okay.
And do we know if that's on schedule? And,
I have a meeting scheduled with Nate, so I'll,
okay. Just curious where that might be headed, because that may have will have an impact on the budget, one way or the other. Any questions? Go, Dave. Oh, sorry, Ray.
What's that?
Start.
When you just gave your financial thing for, I'm a little confused on highway, so the only revenue increase there probably would be state aid, because when we submit budgets, the general fund, or what, the total tax bill of Weathersfield residents, you know, it always, the highway fund is fully funded, as is the school.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're not short or long because people don't overpay or underpay the highway fund. The upstairs fully pays the highway fund because they do every year. It has to, according to the article that we vote on. Did your calculations in the general fund include the tax quarterly payment in May?
yes.
And I don't think they can, because people haven't paid that yet.
Well, so we don't account that way. So we account as if the general fund was fully funded. And in order for me to see, like, so either way the town's gonna get their money, if it goes all the way to a tax sale, that we just,
Well, here's why
we
we
look
asked
at it
that.
as if we've already received 1 million, excuse me, whatever the taxes, I don't have that in front of me, whatever the taxes were for the general fund.
Yeah, I don't recall that kind of maneuver, but so in the town report, and I don't have it in front of me, but I've pretty much got these numbers burned in my head.
Yep.
As of 6/30/2022, there was 290,000 outstanding taxes, delinquent
That's already
taxes.
been accounted for in our
No,
budget, so.
that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, are all of those outstanding people that have not paid, and the majority of those funds, by the way, are the last quarter payment of 2022, in any year, including this year. So, and they always pay, it might be a month or two late, but they don't generally go a year or 2 or 3 out.
Correct.
I don't expect you to answer this tonight because I don't think you can, but I'd like an update about the status of all those others that are not
Yep.
in that ballpark of the financial year 22, whether or not they are making the policy requirements of paying in 12 months. Because if you take a look at the town report, we have some, and it's a little scary I think it should be scary to us up here and you as well, because there are some, according to the town report, which is passed on to the auditors, that are money owed considerably longer, and they shouldn't be because of the policy.
So
Like
the next,
2010, for instance.
In the next meeting, I'll give a tax collector update.
Good.
With all of that information, similar to the one that I gave back in 2021.
Yeah, because according to our policy again, that those people either need to pay in 12 months and to keep current.
Yes.
Which is like really
Yeah, it's
impossible.
It's tough.
So it should, and we, for years up here, worried about one account. That account has been resolved.
Yep, that was the big one.
And so the reason why I keep talking about this from time to time is that it helps the financial position. And I know we argue about bookkeeping, and we're gonna continue to argue about bookkeeping, because the highway fund is fully funded, the solid waste is on its own, the only one, the school is fully funded. And that's why I read in your updates all the time where if you, for instance, put on the general fund that we're at 103% of revenue at a certain time, it's because those delinquencies are paying or whatever, in addition to the current year's taxes. It can't happen any other way.
That's not what it is.
Well, but when you budget for any year, you use let's pick the general fund. The voters vote on it any year. It says that we authorize $1 million, of which $1 million has come to taxes. We set the tax rate.
Yep.
That's all what we do. We collect $1 million for the taxes. But on the financial reports, you'll see sometimes that you've collected $1.3 million or $1.1 million. That's because we don't separate on a line item for the delinquent taxes or the current year's taxes.
It's penalties and interest.
Well, no, those are delineated.
But, so like, let's say if the town taxed the people $1 million for the year.
Yep.
And that there's still $200,000 that's due from the prior year.
Yep.
When we collect that $200,000, it doesn't come in as revenue. It just cancels out prior year delinquencies.
Debt, prior year debt.
But it is
We have it on our
delineated
books
between
as-
interest and penalty. But the problem comes, as we learned up at the VLCT, that most towns do not, and we don't do it either. So let's just play this all out. Somebody walks through the door and they wanna pay their tax bill. The persons upstairs don't know whether it's delinquent or not, really. They're paying their tax bill. And then all of a sudden, so it gets lumped into the tax, as tax money. Even our own report doesn't show whether or not it's past due or not.
It does get booked to prior years, like if you
First.
Yeah,
Doesn't it
first.
get
That's
first?
where it
Yes.
goes first, and then it cancels that out. So it does affect cash flow,
Yeah,
but when it comes in, it just cancels that year out. It doesn't add additional year.
but you haven't been here as long as I have, and I'll tell you what happens. Most town managers, and you ask the department heads, they've been through this rodeo like lots of times,
Yeah.
and it's like spending freeze, spending freeze, spending freeze, and then May comes on that tax quarterly payment, the last one, and then the managers will say,
We got $100,000.
oh my God, I've got, the bookkeeping, just, I was worried since January, we weren't gonna make the finish line. Because of the May quarterly tax payment and the amount of delinquent money coming in.
So
But hang on, hang on just a second, Brendan, because I want to because I've been here a while too, not nearly as long as Dave, and I know what he's saying and I agree with him, but at the same time, we recently under your administration tried to steer that budget to what started out as from you and I think zero-based budgeting.
Yes.
Let's just start at zero, right?
Yes.
And go. And he's starting to head that way. So those numbers are coming
And
down.
the reason why I asked the questions that I did at the very beginning was, I'm trying to avoid a surprise on the second meeting of June, where we will have to, not allow a deficit to happen in the general fund.
Correct. No, that's 100%.
Where
That's
That's where
100%
I'd like to
correct.
be.
Yeah.
I just, here it is, April 15th, or whatever it is now, right? And we're gonna go into May, which is a quarterly payment, and then that's because we've only done that once in the history of Weathersfield, and we had to have an immediate correction because the law says, I don't know, you gotta have a special meeting or adjustment on a tax bill in the general fund if you run into a deficit.
and
It definitely does.
Go ahead.
in the grand scheme of things, to end plus or minus $12,000 on a multi-million-dollar budget,
We don't wanna be in a minus in the general fund.
we don't. But to land that close, it's not uncommon. And I'm pretty confident that we're not gonna end the year in a deficit.
But we have the ability to avoid that,
We do.
but you need to come to us and say, I think that might happen.
Yep.
Or not.
I
We'll
think,
do that through these reports every month.
yeah,
I do also just kind of want to touch on the projections that, like, we have the May tax payment already projected in our revenues.
Okay.
So when that was made, that factors into that $12,000. The only thing that's difficult to predict is how much interest and penalty we're gonna receive, because that's dependent on whether people pay their taxes on time or not. So that's the difficult component to like try to project for me.
yeah, I'm not gonna call him up and tell him I'm paying 2 weeks late.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
And you and I spoke about this, but I wanted the full board to hear about it, and or anybody else. I don't want you to be afraid of saying what may interfere in individual budgets with regard to inordinate expenses.
Yes.
We spoke this morning, and I know that you know about it, the legal bills here from a few cases that have happened. Those are being applied to budgets within the general fund. I don't think there's anything happened at solid waste or highway that had to have legal fees. That you could call one-time events, and they are affecting the department budgets
They are.
more than usual.
Yep.
To the tune of, I mean, I asked you today what the total legal bill would be for the general fund, and
I'll
I'm
get
sure,
that for you guys in the next meeting.
well, I'm sure it's alarming a little, and it's just because of an appeal and a couple of land use cases that have happened, and
Several appeals.
Well,
There were
but-
appeals at the BOA, appeals at the
but the
zoning
Board of Civil
board.
Authority, yes, so here's what happens though, so if we have people that are saying that they can't get the job done in the time that's allotted, and he is lowering the time, that because of that, because of fitting legal bills into those budgets, I'm not sure that's fair.
Well, the general fund has to pay those bills. We'll have to figure out how we're gonna cover that expense.
But I get it. The proof will come is if either land use or the listers or wherever that, the town clerk or wherever those budgets are gonna be held in a little bit of a short game to get to the end of the year with the money.
Right.
It's about money.
Yes,
It's always
and I,
about
and I see now, I'm making the connection on the unfairness, is that certain departments may be getting punished because there's not enough money for this or that, and the money was actually used somewhere else
Allocated to lawyers.
that had nothing to do with them.
Had nothing to do with the labor of those individual
That's
offices.
correct, yeah. But, you wanna respond to that at all? I mean, you're doing your job to look at the numbers overall, and project, this is where we're at, this is where we're gonna end at, and keeping an eye on that, and trying to make sure we end up in the right place. I'm not sure if you're going here, but, I mean, like you said, if we're off $12,000, $20,000 or something like that, there's the rainy day account. Or ARPA funds that could be brought in to balance this or take care of this before we hit the end of the year and have a deficit that we have to take care of.
Well, you asked earlier when the grand list has to be done. Okay, that's a big deal.
That
because
is.
That's gotta, so, a year or two ago, the listers came into us and said that they didn't have enough time, or COVID happened, or something happened. They couldn't get out and do their jobs in order to get that done, and there was a delay of about a month. How that affects us is we have to set the tax rate by somewhere in the beginning of June, because the residents need it needs to go to print, the tax bills, and you want to have that first quarterly tax payment come in July or something like that.
July or
quarterly.
August, isn't it?
August.
Yeah, so,
Which, remember I brought up last year, kicking that date out a month or two and resetting that due date on
and that
those. I don't know
costs
if
the
you
town
guys
money
wanna
on
do
a
that
cash-
stuff
on a
or
cash
not.
flow basis.
Yeah,
So you try to avoid that. So, but the same is true with land use. I don't know whether or not a couple of appeal cases, I'm pretty sure they did. The legal bills were allocated to that.
And there was a lot of time spent there, and there was a change in attorneys, and the hourly fee went up
Yes,
considerably.
yes.
So, you know, yeah, we got hit pretty hard there,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
I'm done.
You all set?
I will say that, like, although the rate increased, the work is always solid.
Oh, oh, no, I have no complaint about, yeah, I don't want that to be taken as a complaint on the services. You know, I mean, cost of everything's gone up, we all know that. I'm only talking about that from a perspective of, you know, that hits the budget,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, sometimes you pay less for services like that and you get less.
Well, and then you mentioned a comment about VLCT is very broad. They'll provide you the policy, but they're not gonna get involved in a case
Yes.
Right.
or your specific
Yeah.
question. They can't. It has to be more broad. It's,
Yeah, they're more like state statute type stuff and how you're proceeding within your town.
Or training
Yeah,
or-
they won't
yeah.
get into civil issues you've got with somebody.
They'll give you a few free hours though.
yeah,
They'll recommend you to somebody
Yeah.
and they'll give you like 3 hours on VLCT and then you have to start paying.
Any other discussion on the quarter three finance report? None? Ray, didn't you have your hand up at the beginning of this?
Quick comment, Brandon and I are working on we've had an issue with revenue differences coming there, and we've gotten some different prices, so we are actively working on that to help increase revenue at the transfer station.
Okay, thanks.
Side note.
is metal price up? Down?
The metal price isn't bad, but the people are charging more to come and get it.
Oh,
And they're also charging a $10 per ton fee at the facility. So we're actually losing more.
oh,
So we've been chopped.
Hmm.
We're aware of it and we're trying to take care of it.
ARPA discussion.
do you have a list of what we talked about, or, because that's kinda gonna be like helpful or whatever, right?
From the
So at
last,
next meeting, a list will be assembled. We have a meeting at the 1879 schoolhouse, and I just wanted to get one last swoop of like community input from my office anyway, and then I plan to release that list. I
So-
can release some numbers.
Our meeting is not there. You're gonna have another meeting separate there?
Yeah, we're gonna have another meeting separate. Select board members, anybody in the public is welcome to come. It's just a meeting that we're gonna host. Steve Heyer and I talked about it. So he'll be attending that, and each department,
Is
like,
that next week on the 25th?
I'll send out an email with that date. I think there was a couple of schedule conflicts, so I believe it's
Yeah,
on the
'cause we have
Thursday.
a meeting here, 6:30.
I thought you said May 4th.
May 4th,
I thought you said that
Okay.
in your meeting.
The 25th of
May 5th.
This month,
April?
yeah,
We have another meeting?
yeah.
What one?
One where we meet with Flo Ann and Mr. Stankovich.
Oh, Board of Civil Authority. Do you have any idea of the outstanding, here's what you might wanna get your arms around with the ARPA stuff. Do you have any idea would there be additional costs to the already allocated ARPA fund projects? I don't expect an answer now, but if you listed them off of what we have, and I don't even know where they are, and then is there any other that you might,
the one that I can think of is the generator for here, because the money for the install,
it wasn't included?
well, it didn't include like the setting of the tank and the running of the lines and stuff like that outside.
And it didn't even talk about if it needed electrical work or anything done inside here? I don't,
Thought they looked at that.
I
and said,
gotta say, I
"Oh,
think that part of the install was
Might wanna
part of the
check.
quote, but I don't think I think it was just getting it hooked up, like setting the generator outside, and even setting the generator might have been part of it, but like the gas tank and the lines and stuff.
So here's a really good, I guess, information to release at this time. So when the board approved this, it was $30,000, but then we got a grant that covered 15. So now we have that 15,000 that's been freed up, and that's already built into what's the sheet that you have right now. We just
What's
have to
already
read.
been taken or
Exactly.
spoken for.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think, depending on what the figures come in to run those lines, if it exceeds 15, then maybe, but I don't think that it will exceed 15,000 to do that. In fact, I think it'll come in significantly less.
Has there been any follow-up to the idea of having a generator, of at least maybe not as lab, but at the highway garage?
That should be on the list, shouldn't it?
Okay.
On that note, I did find one for sale at an auction. It sold for like $7,800, but it was three-phase, and it couldn't be easily turned into what we needed, so we bought it. I got excited for a while there. 200 kilowatt, you could run the whole village. Came out of a wastewater plant up in St. John's River.
I still struggle to understand why we've got a solar field sitting there at the highway garage that doesn't power the highway garage.
Well, you gotta have battery
No
storage,
batteries.
or some kind of storage.
All kidding aside, the Bobcat skid steer was bought at an auction at a farm that we now have. So maybe we should entertain an idea to let Ray do some work on something. It's not, things happen at different times, and sometimes we bought a used Mack dump truck that lasted for years at Killington. I would not rule out if you came to opportunity to do something.
The reason this generator, came up for sale is because they got a grant for a new one, and they were getting rid of their old one. It was a 1996, but it had very little hours on it. So I'm definitely, I listen constantly, I'm on these auction sites a lot. Municipal has a lot of these.
But they can spend their money, we don't have to spend ours.
Well, okay, but let's talk about how we would, he can't wait, obviously, for us to come sit down here and make a decision on something like that. If he comes across something, he's gotta have the ability to go and pull the trigger.
Well, and I think that the board at the time, I remember they went to the farm auction and they bought it. The board they hurried up. Wes had to be involved because he was in charge of the transfer station, and they wanted to buy to pick up the pallets. That was when we were bailing stuff over there, and they authorized the chair to go ahead and do it and waive the purchase policy and see what it sold for.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, what if he's online, today's Monday, what if he's online Tuesday, Wednesday, this week, and he comes across something?
Then his first obligation is to go to the manager, to chain of command, and then the manager would call you up as a chair and say, hey, look, these guys have got a good idea, and he thinks it's well worth it, or whatever, and go. And then,
Okay, and what's the amount you wanna set on this, that you're gonna stay under the purchasing policy, or you just want?
First thing to do is get a hold of the electrician, have them come in and tell me exactly what size I need for the minimum. Anything above that's a bonus.
Well,
Ray's
Ray,
like, don't make me in charge.
well, Ray, I think Dave opened the door to other potential equipment, not just generators.
yeah, exactly. I didn't go down the road of just that. I mean, you brought up that there was a generator that came for sale, and then it was low hours and so forth. And
Right.
Water receiver used
yes,
on Craigslist. And
Yes.
I worked with Ed, and he worked with whoever was in charge of the board at that time, and it got done. And I
Yes.
spent $2,300.
yes,
To do.
yes.
And then it went to the board.
My guess is you pay attention to the purchasing policy, which sets a threshold like all the other things around here for $10,000.
Okay,
And then there's a process to say that you gotta go get 3 bids unless the board waives the purchasing policy, which it takes a vote of the board.
well, I think when you're talking about something like this that pops up, that's a sole supplier because you're buying something used, it comes under the sole supply, criteria of the, sole supplier criteria of the purchasing policy, so they can make that decision. And you don't need the 3 quotes.
Generally speaking, I don't know, that Bobcat had to be more than 10,000. The truck was more than 10. I think it was 20 or 25. I don't know where they found it. It was on, municipal equipment sites somewhere, and the farm was a farm auction, and the thing didn't have many hours on it at all, so it was like almost new. You know what you're getting into.
And I will say, if it does exceed the purchasing policy, I can pull a meeting together and we can do it by phone. Nobody has to travel.
I just use that for, but the topic seems to be unresolved. We've talked about it for a few meetings about a generator
Yeah.
at the highway.
Yeah.
I don't know whether a new one it will be okay, whether it's 20 or 30 kW. It probably is going to be around that. It can't be a lot more than that. So I can't imagine it's going to be 100. But I'd like to see that move forward.
So make sure that's on the ARPA discussion list at least. And I think from this discussion, if Ray finds another one of those things and it's a good deal, you guys go buy it, right?
Well,
And
I don't know. That just
or
got-
something else.
That's
I
been
know, this
thrown
is-
around here, but about a month ago, right? I mean, I was out of power for 55 hours. Ray wanted to come over and
Yeah.
get diesel fuel from me
Yep.
because of that. So I think we need to,
We ended up in the middle of a storm driving over here to Scotty, luckily we had credit cards,
right,
but the guys with all the plows changing everything.
Right.
8 o'clock tonight, we had to come
Right.
over and get loaded
Yeah.
fuel through the plow
Right.
afterwards.
that to me seems to fit the criteria of more of a management type thing in the use of the ARPA funds.
Oh, I
And
couldn't
it's-
agree
and it's
more.
go- And it's gonna last for years.
And I remember him telling me that, because, I mean, you're in the middle of a storm, you gotta have your trucks, and we've got our fuel.
And it might not
We
be in the
couldn't
winter.
access it.
It might not be in the winter, because this was
No, it
only
could be
a
any
couple of
time.
weeks ago.
Irene could have done that.
Right.
Wendy, did you have some?
No, I'm just very agreeable to this because I don't think we should be in a situation where we have an emergency, we can't get fuel. I think
No,
that's,
no,
you
we
know,
gotta-
And again, I think it's that, you know, we have a highway head and we have, you know, a town manager. I think people can work together, and if something like that, all of us on the board are willing to be available, so.
Well, and this is exactly how things are gonna prioritize and shake out in this ARPA final spending. You know, that's what it's gonna take.
Well, when the ARPA first surfaced, we went around to the buildings. Both the fire departments have generators. They can run off the grid right now. This building's gonna do that, and you could argue that what's more important, Martin Hall or the highway garage? To me,
The highway
it's the highway garage.
Yes,
Yeah.
So,
I do, I agree. I agree.
it is.
Well, go ahead.
I was joking with Brandon one day, I said, at least now they can man the phones while they're complaining because the trucks are.
That is kinda funny.
Hey, the truck's not here. Yeah, I know.
Who's on first? Okay.
There was a grant available for the town office, so that's.
There is a need at the town office, but the need is just as critical at the highway department.
So tomorrow morning, I'm gonna call Brookfield Service, the person that's supplying the generator for this building, get an estimate, and I'll have that for the next meeting.
See if he can give us like 20% off if we add a second unit.
Okay. Okay.
And it would be diesel, if we have the tank tapped.
Okay, select board goals. Now, I don't know how much of a discussion you want to have here. We can keep this going for a little bit, just to get an idea, is there anything you guys want to accomplish this year? Anybody thought about any of that stuff? Dave? No ideas?
Not really.
Not right now?
I'd like to resolve the ARPA. I think it's a good idea, but I just,
ARPA's right up there, yeah.
yeah. I was a little disappointed to hear you answer that, to say that the water and the sewer won't be here for like a year or 18 months, because that's too far close to the deadline of dispersing the rest of the ARPA funds. And I don't know if anything's gonna come of that or not, but
I don't know how much of the ARPA funds would be dispersed beyond the engineering on that. I think those would be other types of grants. I mean, it would just absorb all that we have and then some.
Did we
Anyway.
get that money back?
for what?
Did we upfront money for that and then we got it back? Did we get it back after it was approved?
So we never, what this board approved that day was a $35,000 grant application.
Yes.
And then Olivia was able to get that up to 92,000, so it's 100% subsidy.
But it's
But we
not
didn't
coming
give any
back.
money up front.
No, no.
Okay.
That was not part of, that actually was not part of ARPA. I think what Dave is saying is that when things come about, but I was assuming that we're gonna be looking into other grants because the stuff that's coming kinda down the pike is more for, infrastructure versus, you know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a little bit different, so I don't think that really even
So none of the ARPA funds were used for anything to do with water or sewer?
No,
Well, I mean, money went from the upper funds to the
Well,
water
to the
district.
water
for the
district,
project,
that's different.
but
that was totally
that's
different though,
separate,
that
yeah.
had nothing to do with the,
But it's water,
Yep.
so it's not, it's okay, I didn't know. Well, this building, I don't think is fully complete, because if we're gonna dig over here in this corner to pipe out to the generator, why aren't we digging a curtain drain to stop the water from just making a disaster floor again?
Yeah.
I don't know
Big,
that.
I think I think the bigger problem is over here, but there is a problem over there too. And the drain is on that side,
Okay, I just threw that out there because that's.
out at the street. I
Tossed
mean.
around for 2 years. I mean, we fixed this, it looks really
Right.
nice,
Yep,
but we didn't fix the problem of what happens when it does it.
correct. But that, and I brought that up at the last meeting, that's the foundation of the building is as important as the roof. You
I
know?
suspect there'll be a lot of surprises if somebody tried to dig.
Yeah.
There may be wires or pipes that we don't know about.
Oh, it could get exciting.
It could get exciting.
Oh, boy. Isn't that what DigSafe is for? They come in and they find all that stuff?
Yeah, they tell you hit a wire.
they just,
Go ahead, Rick.
I went to a meeting last week or so, I think it was, with ARPA, with all the different heads there, and the repetitive thing was money for sewer and water for villages. Like all these grants, and for multiple departments, not just one department in the state. So there is a huge amount of money if you can get a design done or a plan done.
And that's all well and good, but Weathersfield is a pretty rural town. And most of Weathersfield, people have their own water and sewer systems. The focus so far with ARPA has been pretty good with the board, keeping it on public-owned buildings that need repairs that would definitely come out of the taxpayers' pockets. And we just took care of that stuff for like the next 20, 25, 30 years on roofs with 3 buildings.
A lot of the grants though are for.
Yeah, sure. I'm not knocking the project. I just want to point out that the way we're using the money so far has been, it's been a benefit to the people of the town. Because these buildings are here. They're going to be here for a long time. They're gonna outlive the repairs we're doing now. They're gonna outlive us.
Be a perfect time to set up a replacement plan for all 3 of those roofs.
yes.
So that you don't,
Yes, cash.
so you don't have the spike. That's also a good
You
idea.
don't have a capital improvement.
I think Brendan's working on that anyway. Capital plan. Okay, anything else? And Paul, you got anything you want to specifically focus on as a board? Any goals? And keep thinking about this. It doesn't have to end tonight, this discussion.
Yeah, I don't right at this moment, Mike, thank you for asking, and I'll keep that in mind for next meeting.
Okay, and everybody else, same thing. Okay? All right. Vote to transfer $5,000 from the police department budget to the police cruiser reserves. This is the grant money that we have to transfer. So do I hear a motion to transfer $5,000 from the budget to the police cruiser reserve?
So moved. To specify that it's from the SIU grant.
Yes.
No.
It's not?
So it's the way that we had to do it budgetarily is from the police department budget to the reserves. The SIU grant is funding other expenses associated with personnel and so forth, which created a surplus in the police department of $10,000 that we're then transferring to reserves.
Yeah, so we don't need to,
So it's
we
not
don't need, we don't need to dedicate the SIU.
Move to transfer 5,000 from the police annual budget to reserves.
Good.
Does the police have 2 reserve accounts or only 1?
One,
Okay, so it's got to do with cars.
police cruisers, yeah.
Okay, yep, no.
Okay.
I'm good.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, vote to transfer $5,000 from police department budget to the police cruiser reserves, amount of $5,000. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. appointments. I don't see any names by any of the openings. There are Budget Committee, Conservation Commission, Energy Coordinator, Green Up Coordinator, Lister, Parks and Rec, Veterans Memorial Committee, Zoning Board of Adjustment. I assume the vacancy numbers and this list is posted online and can be accessed at the town website. Except the 1879 schoolhouse resignations. There are two people who resigned from the schoolhouse, Matt Keniston, and the other is?
Beverly Strobel.
They've submitted letters of resignation. Do I hear a motion to accept those resignations?
So moved?
So moved. Do we have, we don't really have a choice. Do I hear a second? Paul, we have a second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Town manager evaluation process discussion. Most of us did not get those done. Paul, thank you for getting yours done. I held off on mine because I had to make some more copies. And so I didn't want to get mine all marked up before I had to put it through the copier. But that's okay. It's you know, I don't have yours here either, but I know you're done. The discussion was just kind of about the process and what to do with the data once I get it together. And that I've talked to Paul and Brandon. I'll probably get together with Paul. Everybody get these done, get them to me, and Paul and I will get together and go through them and it's just kind of average them out and put it on another sheet. My intent is to give Brandon all the copies. So, you know, you can put your name on it, not put your name on it, that's up to you, but I think he can probably figure out who's filled out each one of these anyway. Put your own comments on it, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. Let's get them done as.
Fill in the dots or multiple choice so we don't know who it is.
Oh, I was gonna put my middle name on there. You don't know that
Name
yet,
on it
right?
with multiple choice? Pick one.
And then,
I don't like the idea of you going through mine. I'll just be happy to submit mine, because I don't want mine watered down.
oh no, he's gonna get yours. He's gonna get it. I'm not gonna water it.
But if
I'm not
you're
watering-
a 5 and I'm a 0, well, then you'll count yours and discount mine.
No, I will have mine done before I will accept anybody's. Just so you know that mine isn't gonna change based on anything I see. As I had asked, everybody please do these on your own.
I heard something different. I heard that you were gonna collect them all, and
Yeah.
you and Paul were gonna go over them and then massage them and look at them and make them feel good.
I didn't say that.
And then
I'm just gonna average them up. That's all.
That's what I heard.
I'm just gonna average it up onto one sheet.
I heard they were gonna get changed in secret.
Okay. Well, how do you know I'm not gonna make it worse for him?
We know you're not gonna do that.
Exactly.
Why? Why not? That could be that would be fun.
Sorry, Brandon.
But honestly, if that was the case, why did we even ask anybody to do them?
I just have to say, when I do the evaluations on staff, at least it's not in public, right?
Thank God.
Okay. So I mean, the purpose for the discussion tonight was if you have anything you want me to do or any particular way you want to handle it, speak now. Tell me what you want.
Hold your peace.
No, I really don't mind them being in public. I can,
Well, the actual evaluation process will probably just be with the board executive session.
Yeah.
But this discussion here was not necessary to be in, because we're not discussing the data.
I
So,
don't mind either way.
okay.
Yeah, you do.
Dave?
What was that?
I said, yeah, he does mind, whether we do it on here or in executive.
My list of questions or whatever are not the same as what's on that sheet that I saw.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, I know it is.
But you
So-
can,
so that's-
no,
so-
you can address them in comments anyway, you can add some, you can add whatever comments you want.
No, I can do what I want.
I know. I'm telling you, you can.
Well, no, you didn't a second ago.
I didn't have to tell you, you
So
could,
I-
you would
I don't
anyway.
understand what you said.
I know, that's what I just said.
What he's saying is we don't actually have to use this, we can just write a letter.
It would be nice if you could fill out,
Yes, Paul,
at least, so that way we can at least have these numbers, nobody's gonna change them, I like to see what the averages are.
We're just
You can still
kidding.
write whatever you want for comments and stuff.
I think a bunch of those questions are a lot like fake news. I'm not sure that they matter to something that operates a small town, that's all. That's what I think.
That's, answer it or don't answer
I think
it,
it's
do whatever you
I
wanna
think it's
do.
kind of a generic thing that's put out by
It's kinda,
VLCT or whatever, or something.
well, and that comes back to not reinventing the wheel. Motion to approve the warrants?
If you can hear me, I'll make a motion to approve the warrants for meeting of April 17th, 2023. General fund for payroll is $14,780.43. Operating expense is $18,957.74. Highway fund payroll is $7,802.14. Operating expense is $15,917.38. Solid waste management fund payroll is $1,608.11, and operating expenses $643.47. Library is payroll $2,151.34, zero operating expense. Capital assets is $102,659. The ARPA firefighter equipment is $5,929. The library courier service is $106.45. For grand totals of payroll is $26,342.02. And operating expense is $144,213.04.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I don't have, my screen's off. There's no Norwich Solar solution yet?
No.
So has there been any progress?
Town council is currently working with council for Norwich. I contacted him and he said that he still hasn't received a response to what we directed him to respond to Norwich, which was what we discussed in executive session.
But what was the course that you set out was you were gonna take away a couple of meters and then have that dollar amount and then let us know what that total amount was gonna be, or you were just gonna pay it? How did the board leave that? Do you remember? Didn't we kinda leave it up that was? Go ahead.
That he was supposed to pay at whatever was left of the.
Well, yeah, but that was, but we did, that's following the discussion with them though.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was exec session, and
Yes,
I don't think we came out with a motion.
Oh, no, we didn't,
we didn't.
no.
So then, in theory, you should wait for the town manager to give us input.
Correct.
So nothing is, so,
Nothing at this point is updated any different than it was, and we, from our discussion, we move forward with a request through council, and we're still waiting for a response back through council.
So basically, can I just tell?
Sure.
Okay. So basically, I asked Nate to discuss with notes broken out and how much is allocated per meter. Because right now it's like we're receiving a lump sum invoice for $10,000, let's just say, for all 8 of our meters. And we can't differentiate how much each meter is costing, which means we can't isolate the expenses per building or per entity in town. and it's good to know the total cost of each one of those things. So that's another thing that I
Which is a little
requested.
weird because we were told that, wasn't it through the guy that was on the broadcast from Norwich that we would be able to, or we'd be kept up to date on whether or not a specific meter was able to give us credits back to another meter?
Because we are dealing with this through council and waiting for a response, I want to be careful how deep we get into this discussion.
Yes, I agree.
And then the last
That
thing,
presentation was given to us by Norwich themselves.
Previously, and we're currently in a discussion with Norwich through council to try to resolve the things we talked about in the executive session.
and the final thing that I requested is for the credits to not expire after 12 months.
Yes.
And then I said, once those things have been completed, we'll make payment.
Did you ever think that, I remember asking this question, was it, after this is over, do you get monthly things now, status or whatever, so it won't be some big lump sum, give it to me like 3 months, or, so you're not gonna see another big demand? Okay,
It'll be a monthly bill.
okay, good.
But we just want that bill to be split out.
Okay.
Like, send
Yes.
us a bill for each one of these meters.
So that, I mean, aren't we paying Norwich? Well, I don't
No,
want to
we
get
pay
into
GMP.
yeah.
No, we pay GMP monthly and they give us individual bills, just like anything else, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They do, yep.
And I've seen them here on the, the highway will have an electric bill, the solid waste will, so I've seen,
It's completely normal for you
GMP
to
bills.
receive separate bills for separate places. Just
meters, it's the meter.
Yep. Our CCI contract was like that a couple of years ago, and we changed it so that each department gets charged based on the number of computers that they have. This way we really know how much it's costing to operate each department. It's a part of zero-based budgeting. If zero-based budgeting is to work, you need to know where you're starting from for each.
And we need to wait to hear back from council on whether the things we've asked for are
Correct.
going to be approved or not, so I would,
Yes. That is correct.
But did we just give the green light to Brandon if those things were met just to make the deal and stop us from delaying 2 weeks or a month?
If the deal is accepted, we'll make the payment, and you'll see it on the warrant.
Oh,
Yep.
oh,
But until there's resolution, then payment will be
oh.
Yeah. All right. Any further discussion on the warrants? Any other questions? Kelly, Wendy, everybody good? All right, motion's been made to accept the warrants. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Warrants are done. Other business, I just have the tax collector update that I wrote down.
And I have one other thing too.
Go ahead.
I just wanna remind people that the personal property tax papers are also due on the 20th. That's this Thursday, I believe.
good.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
second,
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you all.
thanks,
We didn't do too bad, 2 hours.
thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Paul. Hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Recording stopped. I'm sorry, Paul, I turned them off.
Yep. We'll talk about that tomorrow morning.
Take your home with you there.
Could be let down on fire.
Who?
I held on to my other one.
For what? What did I do? I don't get paid. You can't fire me.
I threw it away like.
And I'm elected.
You've got more money than all of us.
And I said,
I do?
I can't find mine.
You got all that,
No, I said
I threw mine away because I
All that what money?
you got all that COVID money and then you got.
No, I threw it away because I didn't hear about it
I
for the
know.
longest
I
time.
said
This is no joke. I literally got an email.
I said I was gonna pay.
I got an email. I had thrown away. The next day I got an email. I went, are you?
I'll be
kidding?"
here.
I said, I think
I
it's
know,
in,
I
I
just,
think it's in the recycle bucket
I
over
do.
there. I said, exactly. I think I tore it in half.
Recycling.
awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Is this your first
that's the
cycle doing
biggest
it,
scam,
or-
this zero sort.
Do
They
we have-
tow all this stuff
we have
back and
something
then
we
they
need to
sort
sign?
it.
And then they dump it
They
in all
sort
one
it.
place.
No, and it goes on a conveyor and Mexicans sort that by hand.
Not this time, but next time.
They sort it and So they're doing the work that we used to do, except they're charging us $60,000 to do it. People here used to throwing glass in a bin and newspaper and cardboard, and then we handled it, and yes, it was work, but now we're getting a massive bill for zero. It's making money for whoever the people are.
Well, it goes right along with anything else that the government sticks in.
No, the government took it, we thought that zero sort was the answer, and then we allowed
I wasn't
Casella
talking
and.
about us. The Zero Store came down from Montpelier.
I don't know about that. I think it came from Casella and from, what's his name now, Priestley, because it's an added way for them to truck material, and we didn't do it. We had it sorted, and now it's just mixed up.
I left to the top line this time.